You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Hello, friends, and hello, first-time listeners. I'm your host, Lenora, and before we dive into the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you may be listening. It's probably like at the bottom of your page or, with your thumb. You'll find it, don't worry. So I'm going to start off today's episode with a quote that I found. I feel like I got to sit up straight for this, Goals do not fail us. It's the implementation that does. That's a quote from Tammy Lynn Guns. That's one of the most accurate lines I think I've ever heard, because it's true. Creating goals and creating all these aspirations is really the easy part. It's just like, oh, I want to do this. Done, simple. We created our goal. But actually executing them, that's the hard part. And for some right now, their goals were really pushed to the side because life happened, and life happens just no matter what time it is. And right now, it's definitely an interesting time in history. And the truth is that our life, our normal, has forever changed. It may not be so drastic, but it's definitely going to be different moving forward. So navigating through change while still trying to achieve your goals, now that's the tricky part. However, it can be achieved. You could prosper from change, and Tammy Lynn Guns, the quote that I just said a couple seconds ago, is on the line to help us manage change and avoid all the stress that can possibly come. So Tammy, who's worked in the healthcare industry for over 20 plus years, is now the CEO of CanCorp Consulting, LLC. She helps businesses successfully navigate change and resolving their day-to-day business concerns. Tammy is also a published author with her latest book, Your Ultimate Daily Guide for Success, and is also a keynote speaker. So Tammy Lynn Guns, welcome to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk with you today.
Now, you're one smart lady, okay? You don't have one. You got 2 masters, my friend, in health service administration and in accounting. What led you on that path to success?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. Actually, it's interesting when you look back on your life, how you end up choosing to make decisions in the way that you do. And actually, I didn't set out to get 2 master's degrees. That was not my plan. But when I was in graduate school getting my master's degree in accounting, I was actually planning on getting a PhD, and I was actually accepted into the PhD program for accounting. But then while I was doing my master's, I realized it wasn't my passion to get the PhD. And so I ended up I talked to one of my professors who did a lot of healthcare accounting. And so I ended up then switching to get, I completed my master's in accounting, but then I also got my master's degree in health service administration. I will also say there was prior experience too, in that my mom was a nurse. And I used to go into the hospital every other weekend, and, I would volunteer. So I had prior healthcare exposure. So
now your area of expertise is healthcare. How do you coach the essential workers right now during this global pandemic?
Great question. Well, so my area of expertise in the last probably 20 to 25 years has been definitely working in healthcare. And I'm not clinical at all. I mean, not like my mom, who is a nurse. I work with physicians, and, I talk to them a lot about things that are not on the healthcare arena per se, because I'm not the clinician. I've been in operations for many, many years. And so I try to help people more with some of their mindset and how to move through change, how to accept things versus, obviously nothing with the clinical on the front line. So those are the ways that I help people.
Now I need to know 3 tips to dealing with change. I've looked online with you. I've gone through all your videos. So I need the top 3 tips.
Great. Okay. Well, I would say number 1, do not resist it. Okay. So whatever you resist persists. And so the very first thing would be to accept that change is actually normal. And the more that you resist it, life is so messy and there's so much always going on around us. So the number 1 thing would be actually don't resist it. The second thing that I would advise people on is know what you can control and what you can't control. So a lot of times we will, absolutely, right? There's even a serenity prayer many people have heard about, help me to understand, what I can control and what I can't in my life. Because the things that you can't control, again, let go. Don't waste your energy trying to control things that you can't. Instead, work on those things that you can control. And then the last thing I would say to you is that moving through change gets you to a place where you haven't been before. And we are either moving in one of two directions always in our life. We are either growing and expanding or we're shrinking and dying. But to get to this place of where you're going to, if you're growing and expanding, you're getting to a place of unknown. So in order to get to the unknown, you have to face change and you have to face things that you don't know. So embrace it. Do not be afraid of it, and know that you will have stress moving through it, but that's actually good.
How have you personally dealt with change in your life? You're laughing. I feel like you have A, B, C. Which period of life do you want from me? Give me any of them.
It's funny. So, we've all been through change when we actually look back on our lives. And, I was at one time, single. Then I got married and had children. And now I'm actually, a divorced person now. So I'm single again. And I also worked in corporate America. And then I went through change where I started my own business. And I've been an entrepreneur the last 3 years. So for me, I really have used a lot of the tips and tricks that I teach others is, for me, I feel like I live my best life right now, but I would have never imagined it, right? It's not like when you start a marathon, that last mile going across the finish line, you can't imagine when you're on that first mile. You just take everything baby step by baby step. It's kind of like when you get in a car as well. If you have a GPS, if you have a destination, I live here in Colorado, say I want to go to the East Coast, I'm going to put that as my destination, say New York City. And then I would end up, going. And even if I make wrong turns, I'm going to be gently corrected. However, I can't get to where I want to be if I don't actually take those baby steps. And the universe always provides you with feedback. Another example I use a lot with people is an airplane. My last trip that I went on, I actually went to Maui, which was beautiful. I took myself there for my birthday. It was my birthday present.
That sounds awesome. Not gonna lie.
It was awesome. I saw the whales. It was just absolutely beautiful. But knowing, pilots will tell you that 99% of the time that you're in an airplane, that you are off course. So how is it then, if I live in Colorado, that I didn't end up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? It's because the airplane has a constant feedback loop. So it's constantly course correcting, but still knowing where it's heading. And that's kind of like us with life, is that first of all, you have to have a vision, right? Without a vision, the people perish. So you have to have a vision of where you're going, but then know that it's constantly changing. So you're constantly tweaking with the feedback loop, and then change just happens.
Now, Tammy, you got to tell me some words of wisdom. What advice do you have for, say, business owners or even entrepreneurs that are trying to deal with change, not just now, because change happens, like you said, every day, every minute?
Well, kind of going back a little bit to what I said before, is one of the things is you don't resist it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people get stuck. That is the issue, is that first of all, you want to fight it and you say, I don't want this change, or because sometimes that gets thrust upon us. Like when you think about with COVID-19, so much change has been, really thrust upon us, seemingly from out of nowhere, where our lives right now look very different than they did just a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And so what you do is you learn again, like, what is it that I can control? And then I can actually, help maneuver that. And then the things that I can't let go of. But I will also say one of the things that can happen. Now, I know this happened during our first week out here in Colorado where we had lockdown. So I was mad. Okay. I mean, everybody went through lots of emotions. Yeah. I looked at my retirement accounts and I was upset and I was angry, and I didn't want my freedom taken away from me. I mean, everybody reacts differently, and however you personally react is okay. And so that first week I was doing all sorts of things that I tell people not to do. I was eating junk food and I was drinking a lot of red wine and, all of these. But what I did is, the ability to change means to be able to stop, look at something and go, yeah, this isn't working. These are all the things I tell people not to do. And so I was able to, again, course correct And, and now, it is what it is. You just accept things and then you change what you can. And so the most important thing is do not get stuck in a repetitive pattern. Some people, it's almost like when you're a child on the playground and you got on that merry-go-round and you go around and around and around and you just can't seem to get off. And the thing is to be able to stop and then go in a new direction.
Yeah, that's like a lot of being complacent, being okay with where you are. And sometimes it's I don't think that I could actually go further in these goals or go further in the business that I've started.
Yes. Well, I think another thing too is allowing yourself grace. So I'm what you could call a recovering perfectionist, in that, life is really, really messy. Life is not this perfect little situation you can put in a beautiful box and put a beautiful bow around it and tie it up. Life is incredibly messy. And so just the ability to maneuver and to change and to know that it's actually okay, right? Because if you always stay in the known, you will not change. You will shrink and you will die. There's a quote, and I would give credit to the person if I remember who said it, but the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to enter. And even Marianne Williamson is known for saying that we really don't fear our small lives. We actually fear our best selves and our brightest selves. And when you first read that quote, you think, well, that's crazy. Why would I fear being so awesome and having all this abundance in my life and a great love? Well, the reason, when you peel it back and you really look at what she said, it's because in order to go from where you are to where you want to be, this great, amazing person, you have to go to the unknown. So you have to go to a place, again, which requires change, which can be very fearful, because our brains are not wired for change. We are wired for consistency. We like consistency because we don't need to be on a heightened sense of alert looking for our safety.
I think every single person can relate to that, because even including myself, sometimes I don't like to change things. I have my routine. I do A, B, C, D, and E. I don't want to take B out and throw in another letter in there to try to redo my whole day. And you got to not be stressed out about it. So that is what I'm learning after talking to you today, that I will take a breather.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why it really is a safety thing. We're just wired that way. Mm-hmm. So if we had to constantly, the reason why our brains like the consistency. So let's say that you drive down the same dirt path again and again. You wear ruts in the road. Well, that's the same with our brain wiring, is the more we wire and fire together, the more we have ruts within our brain. But we can pretty much fall asleep at the wheel and then we don't have to expend energy. And we're like, oh, okay, I'm safe. This is the same thing I've always done. Whereas when you have something new, immediately your body's like, it looks to, am I safe? And so, of course, we're not out in the wild. We don't have to be worried at every corner the saber-toothed tiger is going to jump on us. But in our society, we act that way. So we're always vibrating really, really, fast and what's going on with this? So we seek out consistency so that we don't have to expend energy and we don't have to be worried about our safety.
Now, you are a keynote speaker. What other topics do you cover aside from change?
Well, okay, speaking of change, right? Life has changed for me in the last few months, and this was actually prior to COVID-19. So I have been asked a lot to speak on change, just because change happens in everybody's lives and at work and things like that. But I go back to my second master's degree that I have, which is in accounting. And so I've been helping people a lot lately with teaching people how money works. Mm-hmm. And so again, when I was working in healthcare, I married my two master's degrees. One was in health service administration, so I did operations. And then, of course, I understood the financial component very, very well because of that master's in accounting. Well, now I'm going back and marrying those two things together. And it's interesting because with COVID-19, the two things that came to the forefront is people were not ready financially. Yeah. Most people did not have an emergency fund, and that's something that I teach people to do. And then the second thing is people were not ready health-wise. Those people that, of course, unfortunately had the toughest time with this disease or this virus were those that already had a compromised immune system in some component or had underlying hypertension, other health issues. So those are the two things. If you're ready, we would be naive to think in a world of close to 8 billion people now, because I think the last count is somewhere around like 7.8 billion people on the planet.
That's a lot.
We would be naive to think there's not going to be another virus, right? We had SARS, we had MERS, now we've got COVID-19. Of course, they're predicting this is going to, perhaps rear itself again, in the next flu season, which starts like October, November. However, even if COVID-19 doesn't rear itself again, we would be naive to think something like this isn't going to happen again, some other virus or bacteria. And so the more that we can take power into our own hands, not rely on the government to give us stimulus checks or to give us unemployment, but, or PPP loans. But if we have our financial health in order and we have our own health in order, then we can be prepared to take on these rapid changes in the most effective manner. And actually, interestingly enough, when I talk about health and I talk about finances, you'd think, well, these are opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're really not. A lot of them have to do with, I talk more about the micro decision making that people make every single day of their lives that leads them down a path over years to chronic disease or down a path of years of not having enough money put away for retirement. Believe me, when I put it back to that basics, it's really the same behaviors.
You're definitely inspiring me. So you have to have a favorite part about what you do.
I love helping people. I really, really do. So, that's a great question that you asked me. And for many years, I was frustrated not being the clinician because I work side by side with physicians. And I would say, wow, they're helping. I literally watched my doctor save people, bring people back to life. And I just was in awe of what they could do for others. And then I would see these patients come in, though. Most people come in not with acute episode of disease, but they come in with chronic disease. And so then I thought, I actually can help people. When you look at chronic disease, now this is not about blame. Please don't think this. This is about mitigating risk. Chronic disease happens over a lifetime. It doesn't happen overnight. In fact, when I did my TEDx talk on this, I actually, one of the examples I used is that fable of the frog in the boiling water.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the frog that's put into, hot boiling water immediately will jump out because it knows it's in danger. But however, what we do over our financial lives, basically our lives as well as our chronic disease, is that we're that frog that's put into tepid or lukewarm water. And we don't realize our environment is changing ever so little, right? So when we continue to eat, the wrong foods and we don't exercise and we don't do things for our mindset, we don't notice these things because they're small. They're really, really, they go under the radar. But then what happens is over a lifetime, it ends up adding up to, literally debilitating disease, chronic disease, or like I said in the TEDx talk, you can croak early like the frog because these things are happening under the radar. It's the same with our financial health. Here's another, if you go, and again, this is not about blaming. This is just, let's look at how we can mitigate risk.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a habit of going for a favorite morning coffee, right? Whatever, their latte. So here's why I'm saying that literally the health and the finances are intertwined. So let's say every day you spend approximately, now I know it's going to vary across the country, but let's just pick a number, $5 on your morning coffee.
Sounds about right. Coffee, tea.
Doesn't seem like a lot of money, right? And so what happens?
Are you going to do math telling me $5 times 365 days in a year? Because I don't want to do that math, Tammy.
No, what I'm going to tell you is basically I was assuming Monday through Friday. I assume you didn't go on the weekends. But it ends up being about $1,300 over the year. So so you spend $1,300, but you do it in $5 increments so you don't register it. However, see how that $1,300, if invested, could end up growing. Of course, there's all sorts of ways you can grow your money. But the second thing is that's how we end up doing things with our health. is we make $5 decisions every day. Oh, it's just one cookie. Oh, it's just one, something smothered in butter. And believe me, I'm from Wisconsin. I love butter. I'm not saying that you can't do these things. It's just that you look at them so that you're not doing anything in excess.
No, yeah, I totally I feel like that with like the snacks and everything going up too. So I can relate. So if you want to reach out to Tammy, you can reach out to her on her website at TammyLynnGuns.com. That's TAMMY. Lynn, LYNN, Guns, GUNS.com, or you can reach out by email at TammyLynnGuns at gmail.com, or even give her a call. She has all of it for you. 303-301-4231. Once again, that number is 303-301-4231. And of course, you can check her out on LinkedIn, because I know all you business professionals are going to be on there. It's like, oh, let's connect. And Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm really excited to start implementing some of your tips and your tricks into my everyday life. And since I started out the podcast with one of your quotes, I'm going to end it with one that I think that you're going to like, okay?
Okay.
The secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And that is Socrates. See, I looked it up for you, okay? I'm your host, Lenore, and see you again for another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you. You have an awesome day.